sometimes you only want to order some things from a group. So here, the example that they have, got 7 songs on his iPod. He really went crazy and put everything he owned onto his iPod, all 7 of them. And he only has the time to listen to 3 songs on his way to school. How many arrangements of 3 songs are possible? Well, again, we can do this with our decisions and our spaces. And in fact, I'm going to encourage you to use the idea of the fundamental counting principle. How many decisions does he have to make? He has to make 3. What song's going to be first? What song's going to be second? And what song's going to be third? How many choices does he have for his first song? 7. Then 6. And then 5. Because he's not going to listen to the same song over and over and over again. Okay? Now, this is the same as counting all the way down to 1, and then starting at 4 and counting all the way down to 1 and having, see how things would just cancel out? And you're left with 7 times 6 times 5. So it's the same as 7 factorial over 4 factorial. And we call this a permutation, starting with 7 objects and arranging 3 of them. So its answer is 210. And they introduce you to a formula. The number of permutations of n distinct objects taken r at a time. So here we had 7 distinct songs, and he was taking 3 of them. And they have a formula for this. Now this formula, it's on your formula sheet, but we are going to use it rarely because the fundamental counting principle is so easy to think about that instead of going, oh, I have 7 permutations of 3, no, I have 3 permutations of 7 objects, trying to figure that out, it's easier to decide I have 3 decisions to make. How many choices for my first one? How many choices for my second one? How many choices for my third one? This is going to be easier. So when we're looking at this formula, the NP-R formula, the R stands for your number of decisions, or your number of spaces, if we're going to use that language. And that first n is your number of choices that you start with. Exactly. So here if I did 7p3, well that's 3 spaces, starting with 7, then 6, then 5. But according to the formula says it's 7 factorial over 7 minus 3 factorial, which is 7 factorial over 4 factorial. And if you expanded them completely, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 over 4, 3, 2, 1, all multiplied in between, well, then these would all cancel out, and you have 3 numbers left, which matches with our 3 spaces starting with 7, then 6, then 5. Now you will get some questions that will ask you algebraically to play with the formula, to work with the formula, and we'll look at some of those. But for the most part, in actual questions, you're going to use spaces. So we're going to look at example 2 now, how we would do this with the formula, how we would do it with spaces. 8 students are competing in a 200-meter race. How many ways can they finish first, second, and third? So if this was a decisions question, you have 3 decisions to make. How many ways can someone come first? First, second, third. There's 8 choices who could come first. And then 7, then 6. And this is how I would recommend doing this question because it makes sense. Using the formula, this is the same as 8 objects taken 3 at a time. So 8p3 would be the same thing. And according to the formula, this would be 8 factorial over 8 minus 3 factorial, which is 8 factorial over 5 factorial. Of course, you multiply those all out. And did we do this already? 336? Excellent. So the questions for this one are 4, 6, 7, and 8. Did anybody figure out the word puzzle I gave you before? Has it been? You need a hint? It is a kind of tree. So like pine tree, but pine doesn't have all the letters. Okay? It starts with an S. Yeah, P. Oh, yeah, that's right. Pine is bad because it starts with P. Doesn't have all the letters. So it's not a. It's maybe, you know, if you lived out in the West Coast, you might know this tree better. Doesn't really grow around here. So maybe you haven't heard of it. Okay. And while you're trying to figure that one out, I'll give you another word puzzle. Okay? The other word puzzle is, what is an English word that starts with he, H-E, ends with he, H-E, but isn't he, or he, or he, or anything like that? Okay? So English word that starts with he, ends with he, isn't he, or he. And I said the word at the end of my last video. Ooh. Okay. Yeah, I'm just trying to bump up sales here.
I'm sorry, it's not going to work.
It's not going to work. Awesome.